family TV nights. You probably all have these memories watching. For us, it was hee-haw. My dad really liked hee-haw. And the Wonderful World of Disney and Wild Kingdom. Those are the ones I remember probably the most watching with the family. And you know, that's just a routine American thing to do. I also remember, and I'm sure this happened more than once, although it wasn't the usual routine, I remember my dad waiting in the car in the morning for me to deliver the newspapers, only on the very coldest days in Anchorage. And in the winter in Anchorage, with the morning paper out as a 10 or 12-year-old, the coldest days were, you know, 20 below or more, and pitch black, midnight black. And those were the few times that my dad thought the risk of frostbite outweighed the benefit of doing the job independently. And he would get up with me and sit in the car and drive, you know, inch from one house to the next, keeping the car warm so that I could get the job done. I have some memories that I'm not sure are fully my own memories. I think maybe they're a little bit implanted. I think I actually remember the time that my dad flew over the top of my head while I'm standing in the pansy garden next to the house, and he's being chased by a swarm of hornets that he had disturbed the nest. I know I heard that story, and I was very young when it happened, and I think that I actually remember it. I know for sure I remember the consequences, which is a few weeks of crutches and a broken ankle.
Did he say buzz off?
No, but Sawyer likes that. and that's a great thing to say, because my dad was fond of puns. I do remember a lot of times, I was talking with Peggy about this. She doesn't remember it as well, but I remember my dad and I talking about, you know, making puns, mostly with people's names. So, but sorry in advance for all of you, but it would be like my sister Peg or my sister Peggy who plays cribbage. You know, or my estate lawyer, Will. That kind of thing.
Yes,
so,
yes.
You like those, Sawyer?
Yeah.
Sawyer got the fun.
They're very punny.
They are very fun. But most of the memories that I have of my dad, and this won't surprise you hearing the hip waiter story, have something to do with camping or fishing or going camping or fishing, getting to camping or fishing. And it's really only since I've had my own kids that I fully appreciate my dad's patience, my mom's too. During a 6-hour drive or so that we would take from Anchorage down to Homer, sometimes with Chip in the back of the car, and we got through that in the pre-digital age where kids didn't have iPads or other devices, and I think you're all familiar with this, except for these two. And we got through it by belting out advertising jingles, the Band-Aid song, the Oscar Mayer Wiener song, Mutual of Omaha song, really loud. We thought, we clearly had the idea that we could make up for poor pitch and quality with volume, enthusiasm, and repetition. And we somehow, my dad's driving the car the whole time, 2 little dachshunds in the backseat as well. We somehow made it there and back every time with all the kids still in the car, nobody left at the side of the road, no harm done, and no speeding tickets, which I think is probably the most impressive thing. He never would have spent. And I tried that, but I was never very good at it and didn't have the patience, and I would much rather be either doing the fishing or when I was too little, at least proximate to it, and that let me spend a lot of time with my dad. And we did go on some great trips, sometimes all together, and he took, I think each of us separately, and sometimes just the 2 of us, fishing. So I'm going to tell one fish story, and it's going to be about the one that got away. So that's every good fish story is about the one that got away. And I was probably, again, 10 or 12 years old, and the 2 of us were fishing on the Kenai River in his Zodiac, little Zodiac boat, and I hooked a king salmon. He estimated it was 30 pounds, which maybe means it was 25. It was a big fish. And it was a fighting fish, and I had a tough time with this fish, but we got it close to the boat a couple of times, really close to the boat, and it was an inch or 2 from the net, almost there, which he's, handling the net. And he let me handle that fish the whole time, and it was just about in, and flipped and got away. Gone, like that. And I don't really remember the story because I was frustrated or upset or angry about losing the fish. I think what I remember the most is how upset he was for me. He talked about it afterwards. He just was so sad for me that I didn't get that fish. And I mean, it would have been great, but I had the best time just being here, being with him. It was exciting. It was fun. I felt like I was, you know, it was me and Dad. I was the special kid that day.
That one
Just that
time.
But it was so,
Throw her a bone.
he so wanted us to be happy, and he wanted us to have that joy. And it really struck me in the way he told that story afterwards, how much he valued my pleasure and my having joy in those kinds of things. And then I became a teenage girl, and I'm sorry about that too. And that's when my dad started telling my boyfriends not to let the doorknob hit them in the rear on their way out. I think he might have said that to Seth once, but only joking.
To Seth, he was joking.
To Seth, he was joking. To the others, no, probably not. And I also remember the one argument that we had about whether or not my hair was curly. Oh. And I was right on that one. Probably the only one I was right, but that's, you know, we got to that point where we would argue about anything. But we got through that. And even with that, as a teenage girl, I remember having conversations with my dad, and these conversations just really stuck with me. He was such a thoughtful person. Speak to them. He's now on our faculty, and he'd been invited to come and speak at their graduation dinner. Said something that really hit home, given where I am. And he talked with them about not being fearful about moving on and leaving the hospital and losing the mentors who had really helped to shape their early careers, the early part of their professional life. And he said that the gifts of a mentor really stay with you forever. And so I'm grateful to my dad for his forever gifts. And the knowledge and the skills and the aspects of character that he has passed on to me, and that I hope that I've been able to pass on to my boys.